The sound of the ambulance cut through the early morning silence in San Jose, California. Madison Hayes ran through the aseptic halls of Santa Clara Valley Medical Center, her heart beating so hard it seemed to want to escape her chest. The words, "serious accident" and Cooper Sullivan echoed in her mind like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. On that fateful October night, Madison had no idea how completely her life would change. At 25, working as a software developer at a promising Silicon Valley startup, she maintained a predictable routine that included morning coffees and evening conversations with Cooper, her neighbor and best friend, since moving into the Riverside Gardens apartment complex 3 years ago. Cooper Sullivan, 27, was the typical programming genius that Silicon Valley loved so much. Always immersed in code and revolutionary ideas, he spent hours sharing his dreams with Madison about creating an app that would change the way people connected. His passion was contagious, and Madison often found herself admiring not only his brilliant ideas, but also the warm smile that lit up his face as he talked about his projects. "Miss Hayes?" Dr. Richardson's voice interrupted his memories. "Mr. Sullivan is stabilized, but the condition is serious. The impact of the accident caused multiple fractures and head trauma. He will require intensive care and a long period of rehabilitation." Madison felt her legs weaken. Is he going to be okay? The next 48 hours will be crucial, but he's young and healthy, so that works in his favor. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Madison reorganized her entire life around Cooper's needs. He managed to arrange a remote work arrangement with his company and began dividing his time between programming codes and spreadsheets for medication, physiotherapy, and medical appointments. At first, Cooper was unrecognizable, not just from the scars and braces, but from the depression that consumed him. The man who was once overflowing with energy and optimism now spent hours in silence, staring at his bedroom window. "You don't have to do this, Maddie," he said one night, his voice thick with bitterness. "Your life shouldn't stop because of me." Madison held his hand firmly. "My life didn't stop, Cooper. It just gained a new purpose." It was during these long nights of wakefulness that Cooper began working on his app again. With limited movement and using an adapted tablet, he channeled his frustration into code. Madison often fell asleep on the couch in his room, waking up to find him completely engrossed in his work. "It's different now," he explained to her during a particularly difficult physical therapy session. "Before, I wanted to create something revolutionary. Now, I'm creating something meaningful." The app evolved from a simple idea into an innovative platform that connected people recovering from trauma with a specialized support network. Cooper turned his own experience into something that could help thousands of people. As the months turned into years, the relationship between Madison and Cooper deepened in ways neither dared to name. It was the small moments, the prolonged touch during rehabilitation exercises, the looks that lasted longer than necessary, the whispered conversations in the early hours of the morning, that built something greater than friendship. 5 years passed like this, with Madison and Cooper building an intimacy that transcended conventional definitions. She was there for every achievement, the first unsupported step, the return to swimming, the endless nights of programming. He, in turn, became her safe haven, the person with whom she shared her own struggles and dreams. The app's success came like a tsunami. A major technology company offered millions for the platform, and suddenly, Cooper Sullivan became Silicon Valley's newest millionaire. Madison watched with a mix of pride and apprehension as her name appeared in headlines and her photo circulated in technology magazines. "We did it, Maddie!" Cooper exclaimed during the celebration party, her eyes shining with an intensity she hadn't seen in years. "This is all thanks to you." But as Cooper was drawn into a whirlwind of investor meetings, exclusive parties, and interviews, Madison began to notice subtle changes. Evenings of conversations were replaced by short messages and excuses about unpostponable commitments. The man she knew, who talked about making a difference in people's lives, began to get lost in discussions about market value and global expansion. One afternoon, as she passed his office in downtown San Jose, Madison saw him through the glass walls, surrounded by executives in expensive suits and stunning women who hung on his every word. He laughed and gestured, appearing perfectly at ease in his new role as a successful businessman. For a moment, their eyes met, and Madison saw something familiar flash in his eyes, vulnerability, perhaps regret, before he turned his attention to his new social circle. It was that same night that Madison received the email from Quantum Tech, a technology company in Toronto, offering a leadership position in their development department. The message flashed on her screen like a beacon, signaling a possible escape route from the heartbreak she was trying to ignore. As she considered the offer, Madison couldn't help but feel the bitter irony of her situation. After 5 years of dedicating her life to helping Cooper rebuild, she was the one who needed to find a way to get back on her feet, this time away from him. The invitation to Cooper's app launch party arrived in a silver envelope, the textured paper contrasting with the simplicity of Madison's apartment. She held it between her fingers, remembering how just a few months ago they were still sharing cold pizza while discussing the latest code changes. Cooper's transformation began subtly. First, there were the clothes, the faded jeans and band t-shirts giving way to tailored Italian suits. Then came the move to a penthouse on Santana Row, leaving behind the modest apartment in Riverside Gardens, where Madison could still feel the echoes of their nightly conversations. "You have to come, Maddie," Cooper insisted on the phone earlier that day. "You are a fundamental part of this story." Madison adjusted her navy blue dress in front of the mirror at the Four Seasons Hotel, where the party was taking place. The party room was unrecognizable, transformed into a futuristic environment with neon lights and holograms of the app's logo projected on the walls. Waiters circulated with 500-a-bottle glasses of champagne, while Silicon Valley executives networked with calculated smiles. "Madison Hayes." The voice of Valerie Chen, the app's lead investor, cut through the ambient music. "We finally meet the famous physical therapist who inspired it all." Madison forced a smile. "I'm actually a software developer. I just helped Cooper through his recovery." "Oh, sure," Valerie replied with a nonchalant wave. "Cooper is over there with some potential partners. I'm sure he'll be happy to see you." Across the room, Cooper was surrounded by a group of people, including a model Madison recognized from fashion campaigns. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, and her smile, one that was once reserved for moments of genuine happiness, now seemed like a well-rehearsed mask. "Madison?" Cooper caught sight of her, his green eyes lighting up momentarily. "Come meet some people." Introductions followed in a blur of names and titles. Madison watched as Cooper deftly navigated conversations about valuations and investment rounds. So different from the man who spent hours philosophizing about how technology could bring people together. "Remember when you could barely hold a tablet?" Madison commented quietly during a moment alone. "Look at you now." Something faltered in Cooper's expression. "Those were difficult times." "But real," she replied, holding his gaze. Before Cooper could respond, Valerie asked him to meet a prominent New York investor. Madison watched him walk away, feeling the familiar weight of the distance growing between them. For the next week, Madison immersed herself in work, trying to ignore the news about Cooper that was dominating the technology websites. Quantum Tech's proposal in Toronto seemed increasingly tempting, a chance to start over, to build something of its own away from the shadow of Cooper's success. One afternoon, while reviewing the Canadian company's contract, Madison received an unexpected message from Ryan Thompson, the physical therapist who had worked with Cooper in the first few months after the accident. "I saw the news about the app," Ryan wrote. "I remember when he could barely lift his arms and you were there, night after night helping him type. Does he know how lucky he was to have you?" Madison stared at the message, feeling tears forming. The memories of those difficult days were still vivid. The fear in Cooper's eyes when doctors talked about possible permanent paralysis. The small victories celebrated with tired smiles. The promises whispered in the early hours when the pain kept him awake. The sound of cell phone notifications brought her back to the present. It was another headline about Cooper Sullivan, this time announcing his appearance at an exclusive party in Los Angeles, alongside a famous actress. The photo showed him smiling, seemingly with no trace of the vulnerable man she had known so well. Madison opened her laptop and began typing a response to Quantum Tech. As the words flowed on the screen, she couldn't help but think about how life had its own plans. 5 years ago, she reorganized her existence to help Cooper rebuild. Now it was time to do the same for herself. The sound of rain against his apartment window created a melancholy melody that matched his mood. Madison looked out at the familiar view of Riverside Gardens, the place where her story with Cooper began. The city lights flickered through the fog, reminding her of the nights they lay awake, dreaming of the future. Her phone buzzed with a message from Cooper. "I miss you, Maddie. Can we talk?" She left the message unanswered, knowing that some words, once not spoken at the right time, lose their power over time. The Cooper she knew, the man who struggled to regain movement in his hands, who shared his deepest fears in the early hours of the morning, seemed to have disappeared amid the glow of success. As the night progressed, Madison finalized her email to Toronto, accepting the proposal. The words on the screen seemed to seal a fate that, although painful, was perhaps necessary. Sometimes, she thought, the greatest act of love is knowing when to walk away. Quantum Tech's Toronto headquarters sent the final documents for Madison to sign, but she kept the email minimized on her laptop as she focused on the code on her screen. Work had always been her refuge, especially now that social media seemed determined to constantly remind her of Cooper's new lifestyle. "Madison, do you have a minute?" Rachel Kim, her supervisor at the startup where she worked, appeared at her workstation. "We need to talk about the Nexus project." On the way to the conference room, Madison took in the view of San Francisco Bay through the office windows. The urban landscape that once enchanted her now seemed suffocating, each building holding a memory she would rather forget. "I heard rumors about you leaving," Rachel commented, closing the door to the room. "Quantum Tech would be an excellent opportunity for you." Madison adjusted herself in her chair. "I haven't made a definitive decision yet." "Madison," Rachel leaned forward, "you're one of the best developers I've ever had. But the last few months, well, you're physically present, but your mind seems to be somewhere else." Rachel's words hit Madison like a punch to the gut. It was true. Ever since Cooper had become Silicon Valley's new darling, she had been struggling to stay focused. "Maybe it's time for a change," Rachel suggested gently. "Sometimes geographic distance is exactly what we need to gain perspective." Leaving the office that afternoon, Madison decided to walk home instead of taking an Uber. The fresh San Francisco air helped clear his thoughts. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Cooper. "We need to talk, Maddie. It's important. Dinner today?" She stopped in front of a window, looking at her reflection. The woman staring back at her looked older than her 30 years, carrying the weight of unmade decisions and unspoken words. Against her better judgment, Madison responded, "Okay, where?" "Alexander's Steakhouse, 8 p.m. I'll send a car to pick you up." Alexander's was very different from the places they used to dine at. No shared pizzas or late burgers. Madison felt out of place even in her most elegant dress, watching Cooper nod to the sommelier with practiced familiarity. "You look beautiful," he commented, his green eyes studying her with an intensity that made her heart skip a beat. "Cooper, why are we here?" He took a sip of wine before responding. "Investors are pushing for international expansion. They want offices in London, Tokyo, Sydney." He paused. "Toronto." Madison felt her stomach sink. "Like you." Valerie Chen mentioned that Quantum Tech was recruiting talent from the Valley. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. Cooper leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell me?" "When exactly should I have told you, Cooper? Between your parties in Los Angeles or your celebrity meetings?" The hurt in her voice was palpable, making Cooper flinch slightly. "Maddie, I know things have changed, but have they changed?" Madison laughed humorlessly. You disappeared, Cooper. 5 years. 5 years I dedicated to helping you recover, to building your dream. And the moment you got what you wanted, you just moved on. It's not that simple. Cooper ran a hand through his hair, a familiar gesture that for a moment made him look more like his old self. The investors, the expectations. Sometimes I feel like I'm losing control of my own creation. The app was supposed to help people, remember? That was the goal when you started developing it during recovery. And it still is, Cooper protested. But now we have a chance to reach millions of people. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Madison felt tears forming. What meant something to me was seeing you dedicated to making a difference, not increasing stock values. A heavy silence fell over the table. Around them, other customers chatted and laughed, oblivious to the unfolding drama. Come with me to Toronto, Cooper said suddenly. We can open the office together, start over. No, Madison cut him off. I can't continue to be your safe haven while you navigate between 2 different lives. I need to do this for myself. Madison, please. The vulnerability in her voice made her heart clench. I know I screwed up, but I'm still me. The same guy you helped relearn how to type, who stayed up nights dreaming about this moment. No, Cooper, you're not that guy anymore. And maybe, she took a deep breath, maybe it's time for us to admit that we both need to go our separate ways. Madison stood up, ignoring Cooper's pleading look. As he walked out of the restaurant, he remembered all the nights they spent together during his recovery, the silent promises exchanged in glances, the shared dreams that now seemed so far away. Outside, San Francisco's signature fog had descended on the city, enveloping the buildings in a melancholy embrace. Madison declined the car Cooper had sent, preferring to walk in the light drizzle. In her pocket, her phone buzzed with messages she knew were from him, but would remain unanswered. It was time to accept that some stories, no matter how deeply intertwined, needed to come to an end so new chapters could begin. Toronto wouldn't just be a change of scenery. It would be her chance to rediscover who she was, beyond the girl who dedicated 5 years of her life to a man she now barely recognized. Quantum Tech's Toronto office has submitted the final details for Madison's move. In 2 weeks, she would leave San Francisco behind. The date of the flight flashed on her screen like a constant reminder that there was no going back. September 15th would be the day she finally turned the page. As she organized the boxes in her Riverside Gardens apartment, each object seemed to carry a memory. The framed photo of her and Cooper at the company Christmas party 3 years ago, when he still used a cane. The cracked mug he always used during long nights of programming. The soft blanket she kept on the couch for the times he fell asleep during his physical therapy sessions. You can't just throw everything away, said Olivia Martinez, her friend and fellow developer, watching Madison sort items for donation. It's 5 years of history. Madison paused, holding up an old t-shirt that Cooper had forgotten at his apartment. Sometimes, Liv, holding on to things just makes it harder to move on. Madison's phone vibrated. It was a message from Derek Anderson, the HR director at Quantum Tech. Confirmed apartment in Yorkville, Lakeview. I think you'll like it. She smiled, appreciating the company's efficiency in taking care of the details of her relocation. Toronto represented not just an escape, but an opportunity for professional growth that she had neglected in recent years, too busy being someone else's pillar of support. Madison, Cooper's voice echoed over the intercom, making her heart skip a beat. Please, I need to talk to you. Olivia gave Madison a worried look. Do you want me to send him away? Madison took a deep breath. No, I need to sort this out. When she opened the door, Cooper looked different from the polished businessman she had seen at Alexander's. His hair was messy, his beard was unshaven, and his eyes had deep circles under their eyes. Investors want to completely change the app, he said without preamble, entering the apartment. They want to turn it into a targeted advertising platform. Use patient data for personalized marketing. Madison felt a knot in her stomach. This goes against everything you planned. I know. Cooper ran his hands over his face. But they have a majority on the board now. Valerie says it's the only way to ensure sustainable growth. And what do you want, Cooper? He stopped, looking around the partially packed apartment. I want to go back in time, to when it was just the two of us, working on this project because we believed it could help people. We can't go back, Madison said softly. And you can't expect me to stay here, watching you lose yourself more and more. Cooper approached, his green eyes intense. What if I sold my share? We started something new from scratch. Cooper. Madison took a step back. You're not thinking clearly. Your life is set up here. The investors, your new penthouse, your connections. None of this matters without you, Maddie. His voice broke. These past few months, I've been smiling for the cameras and closing deals. But I feel empty, like when I woke up in the hospital, unable to move my arms. Except this time you're not there to help me rebuild. Madison felt tears burn her eyes. You don't need me to rebuild yourself this time, Cooper. You need to find your own way. Why can't you see? Cooper approached again. It's not about needing you. It's about wanting you in my life. It always has been. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of notifications on Cooper's cell phone. Probably more messages from investors or press officers demanding his attention. See? Madison gestured to the phone. This is your world now, and that's okay. You've worked hard for it. But I can't continue to be your safe haven while you navigate between two different lives. Madison, please. Cooper took a step towards her, but she raised her hand, stopping him. My flight is on the 15th, she said, her voice steady despite the tears. I think we better say goodbye now. Cooper stood still for a moment, his eyes roving over her face as if trying to memorize every detail. Finally, he nodded slightly and walked to the door. You've always been more than my safe haven, Maddie, he said softly before leaving. You were my north. After his departure, Madison collapsed onto the couch, finally allowing herself to feel the full weight of the situation. Olivia sat next to him, offering silent comfort. You know what's hardest? Madison whispered. For 5 years, I helped him rebuild physically. Now, when he needs to rebuild emotionally, I have to leave. Sometimes the greatest proof of love is letting someone find their own way, Olivia replied, hugging her friend. That night, after Olivia left, Madison stayed up going through old photos on her phone. Images of Cooper in his wheelchair, determined during physical therapy sessions. Cooper celebrating his first unaided steps. Cooper asleep on his couch, laptop balanced precariously on his lap, app codes glowing on the screen. It was difficult to reconcile those memories with the man who now graced the covers of business magazines, smiling alongside celebrities and investors. Somewhere between recovery and success, they had lost something precious. The simplicity of two people who cared deeply about each other, without the complications of money and fame. Madison looked out the window, watching the lights of San Francisco shine against the night sky. In 2 weeks, she would be looking at a different horizon, building a new life far from everything she knew. The question keeping her awake was whether she was running away or finally moving on. The sound of moving trucks in Riverside Gardens drew curious looks from neighbors as workers loaded Madison's boxes. Each object removed from her apartment seemed to carry the weight of a memory she was trying to leave behind. His departure for Toronto was scheduled for 10 days from now, and the reality of the move was beginning to materialize in a frighteningly concrete way. Miss Hayes, one of the movers called out to her, holding a worn-out box. Where do you want us to put this one? Madison immediately recognized the contents. It was the physical therapy equipment she had purchased for Cooper. The mini trampoline for balance exercises, the colored elastic bands, the small balls of different textures to restore sensitivity in the hands. Objects that had been instrumental in his recovery and now seemed like relics of a past life. You can donate everything, she replied, her voice firmer than her heart. That afternoon, while overseeing the packaging process, Madison received an unexpected call from Nathan Brooks, the lead developer who had worked with Cooper on the app's inception. "Maddie, you need to see this." Nathan sounded concerned. "Cooper is holding a press conference. Now." Madison quickly turned on her laptop, finding the live stream. Cooper stood on stage in the company's main auditorium, his elegant figure contrasting with the tense expression on his face. Valerie Chen and other executives occupied chairs in the background, their serious faces indicating that something significant was about to happen. "When I created this app," Cooper began, his voice echoing through the microphone, "I was lying in a hospital bed, unsure if I would ever walk again. The goal was never to create yet another advertising platform or to monetize vulnerable people's data. It was about connection, about giving hope to those going through the most difficult time of their lives." Madison sat up slowly, watching the familiar determination in Cooper's eyes, the same one she had seen so many times during his recovery. "Therefore," he continued, "I cannot allow this vision to be corrupted by purely commercial interests. I am resigning as CEO and selling my stake in the company." The room erupted into chaos. Journalists fired questions, flashbulbs exploded, and Valerie Chen stood up abruptly, her face contorted in shock and fury. But Cooper stood his ground, his eyes fixed on the camera as if he could see through it, straight to Madison. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to remember who we really are," he said, ignoring the turmoil around him, "and who really matters." Madison's phone began ringing incessantly. First Nathan, then Olivia, and several other mutual acquaintances. But she remained motionless, watching Cooper leave the stage with the same determination he demonstrated during his most difficult physical therapy sessions. Hours later, as the sun set over San Francisco, Madison found herself on the observation deck at Crissy Field, one of her and Cooper's favorite places during her recovery. It was where they used to come when he needed to practice longer walks, using the Golden Gate Bridge skyline as motivation to take a few more steps. "I knew I'd find you here." Cooper's voice sounded from behind her. Madison didn't turn around. "Why did you do that?" "Because you were right," he replied, moving closer until he was at her side. "About everything. About me getting lost. About the app straying from its original purpose. You just gave up millions of dollars, Cooper." "No," he corrected softly. "I have just regained something far more valuable, my integrity. And perhaps," he hesitated, "a chance to regain you as well." Madison finally turned to face him. The Cooper she saw now was neither the vulnerable patient she had helped recover, nor the polished businessman of recent weeks. It was someone new, someone who seemed to have found a balance between his different versions. "Toronto is still in my plans," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I know," Cooper nodded. "And I'm not asking you to give up on this. I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the man you knew, but better, stronger, not just physically, but in every way that really matters." A group of birds flew overhead, their silhouettes silhouetted against the orange evening sky. Madison remembered how Cooper used to watch them during their physical therapy sessions, saying that one day he would have that freedom of movement again. "And how do you plan to do that?" she asked. "Starting from scratch, using the money I saved to create a foundation that actually helps people in recovery. And," he smiled slightly, "maybe explore some opportunities in Toronto. I hear it's an amazing city for startups focused on social impact." Madison felt her heart race, but years of disappointment made her hesitate. "Cooper, I'm not asking for an answer right now," he interrupted gently. "I'm just asking that you don't close the door completely, that you give me the chance to show that the guy who spent nights awake dreaming of making a difference is still here, more mature, more aware of his mistakes, but still dreaming." The wind blew stronger, bringing with it the familiar smell of the bay. Madison thought of all the times they had been there, Cooper leaning on her as he took tentative steps, both of them building a future that seemed so clear at the time. 10 days, she said finally. "I have 10 days until my flight to Toronto." Show me that you have really changed." Cooper nodded, a genuine smile, one she hadn't seen in months, lighting up his face. 10 days to win back 5 years. Challenge accepted. The news of Cooper's resignation as CEO spread through Silicon Valley like wildfire. Major technology sites speculated about the real reasons behind his decision, while the company's shares plummeted in the first hours of trading. Madison watched from a distance, trying to process the turn of events as she continued preparations for her move to Toronto. The morning after the press conference, Cooper showed up at her apartment carrying 2 cups of her favorite coffee from Blue Bottle Coffee, just like she did during her recovery period. 9 days, he said, handing her the coffee. "I thought we could start by remembering some old habits." Madison accepted the drink, noting that he had remembered the exact amount of milk she liked. "Has Valerie Chen tried to contact you?" "About 50 times, Cooper laughed humorlessly. "But first, I want to show you something." He took his laptop out of his backpack and opened a document. It was an outline of a plan for a nonprofit foundation focused on providing technological support and resources to people recovering from severe trauma. "Remember when we talked about this during physical therapy sessions?" Cooper asked, his eyes shining with the same enthusiasm he usually had. "About how technology could do more than simply generate profits?" Madison scanned the document, recognizing elements of the conversations they had shared during those long nights of recovery. "Did you keep all those ideas?" "Every single one," he confirmed, "including your suggestion about creating a peer-to-peer support network for patient families." The sound of notifications interrupted the moment. More messages from executives and investors demanding explanations. Cooper simply silenced the phone. "Do you know what I noticed yesterday, after the press conference?" he continued. "For the first time in months, I slept without needing anxiety medication. It's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders." Madison noted the subtle changes in his posture. The shoulders more relaxed, the smile more genuine, the eyes clearer. It was like seeing fragments of the old Cooper emerging through the cracks in his corporate persona. "Why now?" she asked softly. "Why not before I decide to go to Toronto?" Cooper took a deep breath before responding. "Because I was trying to be 2 people at once. The successful businessman everyone expected me to be, and the guy you met who just wanted to make a difference. It took the prospect of completely losing you to realize I was losing myself in the process." They spent the morning reviewing the foundation's plan, with Madison occasionally suggesting adjustments and improvements. It was easy to fall into that family dynamic, her pointing out possible problems, him finding creative solutions. For a few hours, it was as if the last few months of distancing had never happened. "There's a meeting with potential partners at Stanford this afternoon," Cooper mentioned as he organized his files. "I'd like you to come with me." Madison hesitated. "Cooper, I don't want to give you hope." "It's not about us," he interrupted gently. "It's about the project. You've always been the person who kept it all connected to its original purpose. I need that perspective." The meeting took place at Stanford's Center for Digital Medicine, a modern building that contrasted with the traditional architecture of the campus. Madison watched as Cooper presented the foundation's vision to a group of doctors and researchers, his passion for the project evident in every word. "What sets us apart is that we're not just creating another technology solution," he explained, casting a meaningful glance at Madison. "We are creating a supportive community based on real experience." After the meeting, as they walked through the campus grounds, Cooper seemed thoughtful. "Do you know what I've missed most these last few months? Our conversations, not just about work or projects, but about everything." Madison felt a tightness in her chest as she remembered the countless nights they spent talking about their fears, dreams, and hopes. "You had other people to talk to. People who just wanted to hear about numbers and market projections," he responded. "No one who actually cared to know how I was feeling." The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with golden hues that reminded Madison of the afternoons they spent on the deck of Cooper's apartment during her recovery. 8 days, she murmured, more to herself than to him. Cooper nodded, understanding the weight of those words. 8 days to prove that some stories deserve a different ending. As they drove back to San Francisco, Madison reflected on how sometimes life has an ironic way of bringing people back to where they started. Not to repeat the past, but to offer a chance to rewrite the future with wisdom gained along the way. The week progressed, and with it the tension between Madison and Cooper grew. 7 days remained until his departure for Toronto, and each moment seemed charged with meaning and unfulfilled possibilities. Silicon Valley was buzzing with rumors about Cooper's dramatic exit, but he seemed oblivious to the speculation, focused only on his new plans. One particularly busy morning, Madison found Cooper waiting at the door of her building, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, a look she hadn't seen him wear in months. "I need you to come with me," he said, a familiar gleam of determination in his eyes. "There's something I want to show you." Madison hesitated, checking her watch. "I have a video conference with Toronto in 2 hours." "Trust me," Cooper insisted, holding out his hand. "It is worth it." They drove through San Francisco in silence, leaving the city behind and heading toward Palo Alto. Cooper stopped in front of a modern rehabilitation center, its glass walls reflecting the morning sun. "Hope Springs Rehabilitation Center," Madison read the sign. "What are we doing here?" "Remember Ryan, our old physical therapist?" Cooper smiled. "He works here now, and he's testing a beta version of the new app we developed for the foundation." Inside the center, they found Ryan supervising a therapy session. A young patient, not much older than 20, struggled to maintain her balance using a tablet that showed personalized exercises. "Madison," Ryan greeted her warmly. "Cooper told me about your plans for Toronto. But first, I want you to meet someone. This is Katie." The young woman smiled, still focused on her exercises. "Are you Madison? Cooper talks about you a lot. You were the one who came up with the idea for the gamification system for the exercises, weren't you?" Madison cast a surprised look at Cooper, who was watching the scene with a soft expression. "Katie was in a car accident 3 months ago," Ryan explained. "The app has helped make your recovery more engaging and measurable." While Ryan showed off the app's new features, Madison watched how other patients interacted with the technology. It was exactly as she and Cooper had imagined during those long nights of arguing. A tool that not only aided in physical recovery, but also offered emotional support and a sense of community. "Come with me," Cooper guided her to an empty conference room. "I want to show you something else." He opened his laptop and showed an email from Quantum Tech. "They want to implement the system here at the Rehabilitation Center in Toronto. They are interested in a partnership with the foundation." Madison felt her heart speed up. "Did you plan this?" "Actually, it was coincidence," Cooper admitted. "But when I saw the opportunity, I realized it could be a sign. A chance to do things the right way this time." Through the glass windows, they could see patients in their therapy sessions, each facing their own journey of recovery. Madison vividly remembered what Cooper was like in those first few days after the accident. Determined, scared, but never giving up. "Why didn't you ever tell me about developing this?" she asked softly. Cooper ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she knew well. "Because I was embarrassed. While I was giving interviews about valuations and global expansion, I was secretly working on it. It was like I had 2 parallel lives, and I didn't know how to reconcile them. And now, he smiled. Now I just want one life. One that makes sense, that has purpose. And you have always been a central part of that vision, Maddie." Madison's phone vibrated, a reminder of her video conference with Toronto. The reality of his impending departure weighed heavily on them. "I'm not asking you to give up on your plans," Cooper continued. "I'm asking you to consider the possibility that we can build something meaningful together, even if it's in another city." Madison watched Katie through the glass, now celebrating with Ryan a new milestone in their workouts. It was impossible not to see the parallel to her own story with Cooper, the small victories, the shared frustrations, the pure joy of seeing real progress. 6 days, she murmured, turning to Cooper. How do you plan to use the time you have left? Showing you that that man who spent hours dreaming about making a difference hasn't disappeared, he replied. He only got lost for a while, but he found his way back. Thanks to you. As they left the rehab center, Madison thought about how life had a curious way of coming full circle. 5 years ago, she had helped Cooper rebuild physically. Now, he was the one rebuilding himself emotionally, finding his true purpose again. The afternoon sun painted Palo Alto in golden hues as they drove back to San Francisco. Madison had a lot to process. The video conference with Toronto, the plans for the foundation, and most importantly, the transformation evident in Cooper. He was no longer the distant businessman he had been in recent weeks, nor was he exactly the same man she had helped recover years ago. This was someone new, someone who seemed to have found a balance between ambition and purpose. "Do you want dinner later?" Cooper asked as he stopped in front of her building. "I promise it won't be Alexander's this time. I was thinking about that pizza place we used to go to during my recovery." Madison couldn't help but smile. "The one with that margarita pizza that you said was the best in the world?" "Exactly that one," he smiled back. "Sometimes the best path to the future is to revisit the places that made us who we are." The law firm Bennett & Associates occupied the entire 20th floor of one of San Francisco's most prestigious buildings. Madison nervously adjusted her skirt as she waited at the lavish reception. This wasn't how she planned to spend her 6th day before leaving for Toronto, but an urgent email from Amanda Bennett, one of the firm's most respected partners, left her no choice. "Miss Hayes," the secretary called. "Dr. Bennett will see you now." Amanda Bennett was a woman in her 40s with a penetrating gaze that seemed to assess every detail. "Thank you for coming with so little warning, Miss Hayes. Please have a seat." "I admit I'm curious about the reason for this meeting," Madison said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I represent the interests of some of the majority investors in the application developed by Cooper Sullivan," Amanda began, leafing through a folder. "It has come to our attention that you had significant participation in the initial development of the product." Madison felt her stomach sink. "I just helped Cooper during his recovery." "Our investigation suggests something more substantial." Amanda slid some documents across the table. "We have records of your contributions to the source code, suggestions for features that became fundamental to the success of the application. Technically, you could claim rights to part of the intellectual property." "I'm not interested in suing anyone," Madison quickly responded. "Actually," Amanda smiled, "we're offering a deal. The investors are willing to compensate you handsomely in exchange for a formal waiver of any rights to the app." Madison looked at the amount proposed in the document. It was more money than she would make in a decade at Quantum Tech. "Why now?" "Mr. Sullivan's dramatic exit has created instability. We want to ensure there are no future surprises." Madison's phone vibrated. It was a message from Cooper. "Important meeting at Hope Springs this afternoon. Several patients want to share how the app has changed their lives. Are you coming?" "Miss Hayes?" Amanda brought her back to the present. "What do you say?" Madison slowly stood up. "Tell your clients they can rest assured. I never did anything expecting recognition or compensation. It was about helping people, from the beginning." Leaving the office, Madison felt a clarity she hadn't experienced in weeks. His phone rang again. This time it was Rachel Kim, his supervisor. "Madison, Quantum Tech is pressing for an answer on the exact date of your arrival in Toronto. Can I call you later, Rachel? I'm on my way to an important meeting." Hope Springs Rehabilitation Center was busy when Madison arrived. Cooper was waiting for her at the entrance, his face lighting up when he saw her. "I thought you wouldn't come," he said softly. "I had an interesting meeting with your former investors' lawyers," she replied, watching as his expression changed. "They offered me a lot of money to give up any rights to the app." "Maddie, I never wanted—" "I know," she interrupted him. "And that's why I'm here, to remember why we started all this." Inside the center, a group of patients and their families were gathered in a makeshift conference room. Katie, the young woman they had met days before, was among them. Before the app, an elderly woman began. "My husband refused to do the exercises. Now he competes with other patients online, sharing progress and stories. One after another, patients shared their experiences." Madison watched Cooper, noticing how deeply each story affected him. This was the man she had met years ago, not the valuation-obsessed businessman, but someone genuinely dedicated to making a difference in people's lives. "I managed to take my first steps without assistance yesterday," Katie announced, prompting applause. "And the first thing I did was post in the app's support group. I got so much support. It's like having an extra family." After the meeting, Madison and Cooper walked through the center's garden. The afternoon sun created long shadows on the manicured lawn. "The lawyers showed me early development records," Madison commented. "You kept all my comments and suggestions in the code." Cooper stopped walking. "Of course I kept them. They were shiny, like everything about you." "Why didn't you ever mention this during the entire sales process?" "Because you never did anything expecting recognition," he replied simply, "and I admired that so much. Until I got lost in the dazzle of success and forgot what really mattered." Madison felt tears forming. 5 days, Cooper. In 5 days I'll be in another country." "I know." He stepped closer, his green eyes intense. "But I also know that what we've built, not just the app but our story, is greater than any distance." "How can you be so sure?" "Because for the first time in a long time I'm seeing clearly." Cooper smiled softly. "And what I see is that all paths, no matter how crooked, lead me back to you." The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the center's parking lot, several patients were saying goodbye, some using walkers, others wheelchairs, but all carrying on their faces that familiar determination that Madison had seen so many times on Cooper's face during his recovery. It was a powerful reminder of how it all began, not with dreams of wealth or success, but with the simple, deep desire to make a difference in people's lives. And maybe, Madison thought as she watched Cooper interact with patients, some stories needed detours and restarts to find their true path. The day dawned in San Francisco with a characteristic fog hanging over the city. Madison sat on her porch, a cup of coffee cooling beside her, as she reread the email from Quantum Tech for the 10th time. They wanted final confirmation on her start date in Toronto, not just her arrival, but the exact moment she would begin leading the development team. The sound of familiar footsteps in the hallway made her look up. Cooper appeared carrying a worn-out cardboard box, wearing an old MIT t-shirt she recognized from the early days of her recovery. "I found this while organizing my apartment," he said, placing the box on the balcony table. "I thought you might like to see." Madison opened the box carefully, feeling her heart sink as she recognized its contents. There were handwritten notes from the first drafts of the application, scribbled on hospital napkins, Post-its, and loose sheets of paper. Many of them had his own handwriting mixed with Cooper's. Interface suggestions, basic flow charts, ideas for features that were born during long nights of recovery. "Remember this one?" Cooper picked up a particularly crumpled sheet. "That's when you suggested adding the function of connecting patients with similar stories. You said that sometimes the most important thing was not the exercise itself, but knowing that you are not alone on the journey." Madison ran her fingers over the yellowed paper. "It was after that particularly difficult night, when you had such a severe pain attack that the doctors considered admitting you again. And you stayed up with me until dawn," Cooper added softly, "talking about how we could turn that experience into something positive for other people." A comfortable silence settled between them as they continued exploring the contents of the box. Every paper, every note told a story, not just of the app's development, but of their journey together. "Quantum Tech wants a definitive answer today," Madison said finally, breaking the silence. "About when I start in Toronto." Cooper nodded slowly. "And what are you going to say?" "I don't know," she admitted. "Over the last few days, seeing you reconnect with the app's original purpose, working with patients at Hope Springs, Makes it feel like I'm running in the wrong direction. There's no wrong direction, Maddie. Cooper leaned forward, his green eyes intense. Just different paths that lead us to who we need to be. Madison's phone vibrated. It was a message from Katie at the rehab center, sharing a video of her first steps without the aid of a walker. In the background of the video, the voices of other patients could be heard cheering her on. "This is what we built together," Cooper commented, watching the video over Madison's shoulder. "Not just an app, but a community, a family." Madison felt tears forming. 4 days, Cooper. In 4 days, this will all be behind us. "Not necessarily," he replied, pulling out his own phone. "I looked at the Quantum Tech website last night. They have an incredible medical research center in Toronto that specializes in assistive technology. Have you ever imagined the impact we could have by expanding the Foundation's work there?" Madison looked at him, surprised. "Are you really considering going to Toronto?" "I'm considering following the purpose I rediscovered thanks to you," he smiled. "If it means building something significant in a new city, why not?" Besides, he took another paper from the box. "We still have a lot of ideas here that we've never implemented." The paper he held was a crude drawing of an interface they had dreamed up together during a particularly difficult morning. A system that would allow recovering patients to connect their medical devices directly to the app, creating a real-time support network. "The doctors at Hope Springs loved this idea," Cooper continued. "Imagine implementing this on an international scale, connecting rehabilitation centers in different countries." Madison watched as his eyes lit up as he talked about the possibilities, reminding her of the man who spent hours sharing his dreams of changing the world through technology. But there was something different now, a maturity, a deeper understanding of the true impact they could have. "What if it goes wrong?" she asked softly. "What if it works?" Cooper countered. "Maddie, these past few months I've lost myself trying to be someone I'm not. But you've always seen me for who I really am, even when I've forgotten myself." The sun had risen higher in the sky, dispelling some of the morning fog. From the balcony, they could see the city coming to life. People rushing to work, tourists taking photos of the Golden Gate Bridge in the distance, life taking its inexorable course. "I need to get back to Quantum Tech today," Madison said, turning her attention to the email on her phone. "Then tell the truth," Cooper suggested. "That you're coming to Toronto, but that you have a proposal to expand the impact you can have in the area of assistive technology. That you want to build bridges between San Francisco and Toronto, not walls." Madison looked at the box of memories between them, at the years of history documented in paper and ink, at the dreams they had shared that somehow had never really died, just waited for the right moment to be reborn. 4 days, she repeated, but this time there was a different tone in her voice. It was no longer a countdown to an end, but perhaps to a new beginning. Cooper took her hand across the table, a simple gesture but one filled with promise. 4 days to plan the future, not regret the past. Quantum Tech's Toronto office was an imposing glass and steel structure overlooking Lake Ontario. Madison adjusted her laptop as she prepared for yet another video conference, this time including not only the Canadian team, but also Derek Anderson and a special group of guests from Hope Springs Rehabilitation Center. "So, let me see if I understand correctly," Derek said, his face occupying the center square of the screen. "Do you want to expand the original scope of the position to include a partnership with Mr. Sullivan's foundation?" "Exactly," Madison replied, feeling Cooper's comforting presence at her side, just out of camera range. "The work we are doing at Hope Springs has the potential to revolutionize the way we approach physical rehabilitation through technology." Katie, now an unofficial spokesperson for the center's patients, shared her screen to show progress data collected by the app over the past few months. "Since implementing the real-time support system, we have seen a 47% increase in adherence to prescribed exercises." The presentation continued for another hour, with patients and healthcare professionals sharing their experiences. Madison watched the Quantum Tech executives' expressions gradually change from skepticism to genuine interest. Impressive, Derek commented when the last performance ended. But I still have a concern. How can we ensure that this doesn't become just another corporate project losing its original essence? That's why the partnership structure is key, Cooper interjected, finally entering the camera's field of view. The foundation maintains creative and decision-making autonomy over the development of the application, while quantum tech provides the necessary infrastructure and global reach. After the video conference, Madison and Cooper walked along the pier near Hope Springs. The afternoon sun created golden reflections on the water of the bay, and a gentle breeze carried the characteristic smell of the sea. 3 days, Madison murmured, stopping to watch a sailboat pass by. 3 days to Toronto. But it's different now, isn't it? Cooper asked, his shoulder lightly brushing hers. It's not an escape anymore. Madison smiled softly. No, it's not. It's more like opening a new chapter without necessarily closing the previous one. Speaking of chapters, Cooper took an envelope out of his pocket. I found a few more things while organizing my apartment. Inside the envelope were old photos. Moments captured during Cooper's long recovery process. One in particular caught Madison's attention. Them sitting on the deck at Riverside Gardens, Cooper still using crutches, both laughing about something they could no longer remember. It was the day I was able to walk up the stairs on my own for the first time, Cooper explained, his voice thick with emotion. You had prepared that horrible dinner to celebrate. Hey, Madison protested, laughing. I never said I knew how to cook. No, but you knew exactly how to make me believe that every little bit of progress was a huge victory. A group of patients from the center passed by, some in wheelchairs, others with walkers, all connected to their smartphones, likely sharing updates on the app. Do you know what else I found? Cooper continued, taking a battered notebook from his pocket. That journal you made me keep during recovery. Every time I wanted to give up, you made me write a goal for the future. Madison picked up the notebook carefully, flipping through the yellowed pages. Cooper's handwriting, initially shaky and almost illegible, gradually improved over the pages. One day I'm going to create something that makes a difference, she read aloud from one entry. Something that helps people not feel alone during their recovery, like I don't feel alone thanks to Madison. Cooper ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture she knew well. Every word there was true, and it remained so. Madison's phone vibrated. It was a message from Derek at Quantum Tech. Proposal approved, awaiting final documents for partnership with Foundation. It looks like Toronto is really happening, she commented, showing the message to Cooper. For both of us, he corrected softly. If you still want me around, of course. Madison turned to face him, studying the face she knew so well, the green eyes that had lost that artificially polished shine of the last few months, replaced by the sincerity she had missed so much. Are you sure? San Francisco is your home? Silicon Valley is your world? You're my world, Maddie, Cooper interrupted, his voice firm. It took me too long to admit this. I lost myself trying to be someone I'm not, but now I know exactly who I want to be and who I want to be with. A boat bell sounded in the distance, and the sun began its descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Madison thought about how things had changed in the last few days, how what seemed like an end was turning into a new beginning. 3 days, she repeated, but this time there was a smile in her voice. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Yes, Cooper agreed, intertwining his fingers with hers. But this time, let's do it right. Together. The path back to Hope Springs was filled with plans and possibilities. Ideas for new app features, strategies for expansion in Toronto, dreams that were no longer about valuations and headlines, but about making a real difference in people's lives. San Francisco morning brought a different hustle and bustle to Hope Springs Rehabilitation Center. A technology team from Quantum Tech had arrived from Toronto for an in-person demonstration of the app, and the nervousness was palpable in the air. Madison watched as Cooper fine-tuned the final details of the presentation, his determination reminding her of the days when he struggled to regain movement in his hands. The people from Toronto have arrived, Ryan reported, entering the conference room. And they brought in some assistive technology experts you'll want to meet, Madison. The Canadian team was led by Dr. Alexandra Chen, a neuroscientist who had developed several revolutionary projects in digital rehabilitation. His keen eye assessed every detail as Cooper demonstrated the app's features. What intrigues me, Dr. Chen commented, adjusting his glasses, is how you managed to get such a high patient engagement rate. Most rehab apps have a 60% dropout rate after the first month. Katie, who was present for the demonstration, raised her hand. Can I answer that? When Cooper nodded, she continued, It's because it's not just a fitness app. It's a community. When I'm having a hard day, I know I can open the app and find other people who understand exactly what I'm going through. Madison watched Cooper's proud smile as Katie spoke. It was the same smile he had when he managed to take his first steps without assistance, a mix of accomplishment and gratitude. But the real difference, Cooper added, is something Madison implemented in the early days of development. He opened a section of the app that showed a personalized timeline. Each patient can document not only their workouts, but also their daily victories, no matter how small, and the community celebrates together. Dr. Chen leaned forward, interested. And how do you plan to expand this to Toronto? Actually, Madison interjected, sensing the right moment to present her vision. We want to create a bridge between rehabilitation centers. Imagine a patient in San Francisco being able to exchange experiences in real time with someone in Toronto facing similar challenges. The presentation continued for another 2 hours, with practical demonstrations and patient testimonials. When he was done, Dr. Chen asked to speak to Madison and Cooper privately. What you've built here, she said, gesturing to the surrounding rehabilitation center, is exactly what we were looking for in Toronto. But I have a different proposal than what we initially discussed. Madison and Cooper exchanged curious glances as Dr. Chen continued. Instead of just a quantum tech office, we would like to establish a joint innovation center between San Francisco and Toronto, focused exclusively on assistive technology. Your foundation would be the heart of the project. Madison's heart quickened at the possibilities. That would mean... It means you could maintain your operations in both cities, Dr. Chen added. The best of both worlds, so to speak. After the meeting, Madison and Cooper walked to the pier near downtown, their favorite place to process big decisions. The afternoon sun reflected off the water, creating hypnotic patterns that reminded Madison of the early days of Cooper's recovery, when they would spend hours watching the waves move. 2 days, Cooper murmured, leaning against the guardrail. 2 days until Toronto, and now we have even more reasons to make it work. Madison smiled, remembering how just a week ago this countdown felt like an inevitable end. Now, it was the beginning of something bigger than either of them had imagined. You know what impresses me most? She commented, watching a group of birds fly over the bay. How it all connects. Your recovery, the app, the patients, Toronto. It's like every piece is waiting for the right moment to fall into place. Cooper took her hand, a gesture that carried years of shared history. Maybe some things need to break to be rebuilt even better. Madison's phone buzzed with a message from Katie. I just posted my first video walking unsupported in the app group. I've already received messages from 3 patients in Toronto. It's happening, Madison smiled, showing the message to Cooper. The bridge between the cities is already beginning to form. And we'll build it together, Cooper replied, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun began its descent. This time, doing things the right way from the start. The wind from the bay ruffled their hair as they stood there, planning the next steps in a journey that had begun 5 years ago in a hospital room. A journey that, through falls and starts, had brought them exactly where they needed to be. The day before leaving for Toronto started with an unexpected phone call. Valerie Chen wanted a final meeting with Cooper and Madison at the lawyer's office. It's important, she insisted, her voice strained on the phone. And no, it can't wait. Madison watched her reflection in the corporate building's mirrored elevator as they ascended to the 20th floor. Cooper remained silent at his side, but his rigid posture revealed the tension he felt. After everything they had achieved in the last few days, this sudden summons brought an air of apprehension. "Thank you for coming." Valerie welcomed them into her office, gesturing for them to sit down. Amanda Bennett, the lawyer, was present along with two executives that Madison didn't recognize. "We have received information about your plans with Quantum Tech." Cooper leaned forward. "If this is about the partnership in Toronto—" "It's about much more than that," Valerie interrupted, sliding a folder across the table. "You are essentially recreating the original application under a new structure. This violates several non-compete agreements." Madison felt her stomach sink. "We're not recreating anything. We're expanding the original concept to do exactly what the app should have done from the beginning," Cooper added, his voice firm, "before being turned into a propaganda machine." Valerie sighed, removing her glasses. "Cooper, be reasonable. The current app generates millions in revenue. What you propose is glorified philanthropy." "Philanthropy?" Madison couldn't contain her outrage. "Have you seen the results of Hope Springs? The lives we are changing?" "I saw the numbers," Valerie replied coldly. "And I also saw the wasted potential. But we are willing to negotiate." Amanda Bennett opened her laptop, revealing a document. "We offered to buy the foundation and incorporate it as a division of the main company. You would maintain some creative autonomy, but under our strategic oversight." Cooper laughed humorlessly. "Strategic oversight? Like the one that turned a patient support project into a marketing channel?" "Think about it," one of the executives interjected. "With our resources, we could expand not just to Toronto, but globally." Madison watched Cooper, noticing how his fingers drummed lightly on the table, a nervous habit from recovery times. She knew he was mentally reliving every moment that brought them here. The nights in the hospital, the first lines of code written with still shaking fingers, the genuine joy of each patient the app helped. "No," Cooper said finally, standing up. "I won't make the same mistake twice." "Cooper," Valerie warned, "think of the legal implications, the costs of a legal battle." "How about we think about the human costs?" Madison intervened, her voice calm but firm. "In the patients who depend on the support we've built, in the community we've created?" Cooper reached into his briefcase, pulling out a set of documents. "Our lawyers have already reviewed everything. The original application code may be yours, but the new platform we developed for the foundation is completely different. And most importantly," he smiled slightly, "it was built with a purpose that no contract can claim." The silence that followed was interrupted by Madison's phone. It was a message from Katie sharing a video in the apps group. She had managed to climb an entire flight of stairs without help. "This," Madison showed the screen to everyone in the room, "is what's at stake here. Not numbers on spreadsheets or contract clauses, but real people overcoming real challenges." Valerie studied the video for a moment, her expression softening almost imperceptibly. "Do you really believe you can make this work? A sustainable model focused on social impact?" "It's already working," Cooper replied. "And with Quantum Tech's partnership, we can expand in a way that maintains the integrity of the project." Amanda Bennett took some notes on her laptop. "Legally, we would need to structure an agreement that protects the interests of all parties." "Then let's structure it," Madison suggested. "But starting with what really matters, the patients." The meeting went on for another 2 hours, with lawyers coming in and out of the room, documents being reviewed and terms being negotiated. In the end, they reached an agreement that would allow the foundation to operate independently, maintaining a strategic partnership with the original company to share technological resources. When they finally left the building, the afternoon sun bathed San Francisco in golden tones. Cooper and Madison walked in silence to Hope Springs, where some patients were still undergoing their physical therapy sessions. "One day," Madison murmured, watching through the glass windows. "In one day we left for Toronto." Cooper intertwined his fingers with hers. "With everything taken care of here, we can really focus on what matters there." "And what does it matter?" she asked, even though she already knew the answer. "Build something meaningful," he smiled. "The right way this time, with the right people." The last day in San Francisco dawned with a different atmosphere at the Hope Springs Rehabilitation Center. Madison arrived early for a final meeting with the team before their departure for Toronto, finding the center already in full swing. Patients and staff had organized a small surprise celebration, complete with breakfast and goodbye cards. "It's not really goodbye," Katie smiled, handing Madison a digital photo album. "It's more like expanding our family." The album contained photos and messages from all patients who had been impacted by the application in recent months. Every story, every documented progress reminded Madison of why they had started it all in the first place. "Dr. Chen called earlier," Ryan informed, approaching with a cup of coffee. "She is already organizing the team in Toronto for the immediate start of the expansion project." Madison nodded, watching through the downtown windows as the San Francisco morning fog began to lift. In less than 24 hours, she would be looking at a completely different horizon. The idea didn't seem as scary as it had before, just different, full of possibilities. Cooper arrived shortly after, carrying several folders and his laptop. Since meeting with Valerie Chen the day before, he had spent hours finalizing the legal details of the partnership between the Foundation and Quantum Tech. His face showed signs of tiredness, but his eyes shone with determination. "The final documents were signed an hour ago," he announced, placing the folders on the table. "The Foundation is officially independent and ready to expand." A group of patients who were exercising near the window celebrated the news. Among them was George, a 70-year-old man who had suffered a stroke 6 months earlier and was now able to walk with minimal assistance. "You two built something special here," George commented, leaning on his walker. "Something that goes beyond codes and exercises. They built hope." Madison felt tears forming as she watched the center. Every corner held a memory, from the early days when Cooper was still struggling with his own recovery to recent moments of transformation and rediscovery. "Remember the first day you brought me here?" Cooper asked softly, standing next to you. "I could barely hold a pen, let alone program. But you saw something in me that even I couldn't see myself." "I saw determination," Madison replied, turning to face him. "The same determination I see now, only this time directed towards something even greater." Morning turned into afternoon as they finalized preparations for the transition. Dr. Chen had submitted a detailed timeline for implementing the program in Toronto, including partnerships with 3 local rehabilitation centers. "We already have 15 patients in Toronto using the beta version of the app," Katie showed on her tablet, "and they're eager to connect with our community here." One of the new features they had implemented allowed group video calls between patients from different centers, creating an international support system. During a demonstration, Madison watched emotionally as George spoke to a woman in Toronto who had gone through similar experiences. "That's how it started, isn't it?" Cooper commented, watching the interaction. "With people connecting, sharing their journeys, supporting each other." Ryan came over with another cup of coffee for Madison. "You two always knew this would be bigger than San Francisco. You just needed to find the right way to expand." As the afternoon progressed, more people passed through the center to say goodbye. Olivia brought cupcakes from a nearby bakery, and even Amanda Bennett, the lawyer, showed up briefly to hand over the last necessary documents. "Keep in touch," Katie urged, hugging Madison. "Even if it's through the app you created." "Always," Madison promised, feeling the bittersweet weight of the moment. "After all, we're a family now, aren't we?" Cooper was organizing some files on his laptop when he noticed an old folder on his desktop. "Hey, Maddie, look at this," he called, opening the file. It was the first draft of the application, full of notes and comments exchanged between them during the long nights of development. The margins were filled with personal observations, little encouragements that Madison left for Cooper, ideas that came to him in the early hours when the pain kept him awake. "Remember why we started this?" Cooper read from one of the notes written by Madison. You always knew how to stay focused on what really mattered. The sun was beginning to set when they finally left Hope Springs that day. The center was quiet. Most of the patients had already left, leaving only the echo of conversations and laughter that seemed to permeate the walls. "We'll be in Toronto this time tomorrow," Madison commented as they walked to the nearby pier, her usual place for important reflection. "Starting a new chapter," Cooper added, taking your hand, "but taking with us everything we learned here." San Francisco Bay stretched out before them, the calm waters reflecting the last light of the day. Somewhere over the horizon, Toronto waited with its own stories to be written, its own lives to be transformed. "You know what's funny?" Madison smiled, watching a group of birds fly over the water. "A week ago, I was counting down the days to leave, trying to leave everything behind. Now I'm counting down the days to start something new, with you." San Francisco International Airport was busy that morning when Madison and Cooper arrived for their flight to Toronto. The suitcases they carried contained not only clothes and personal belongings, but also carefully packed dreams and promises of a new beginning. "Katie just texted." Madison showed her phone to Cooper as they waited in the check-in line. "The Toronto patient group is organizing a welcoming committee at the rehab center for tomorrow." Cooper smiled, that genuine smile that had reappeared in the last few days. "They're wasting no time. Dr. Chen said they already have a waiting list of patients wanting to participate in the pilot program." As they walked through the terminal, Madison couldn't help but reflect on how dramatically their lives had changed in just 1 week. What had begun as a solitary escape had transformed into a shared journey, full of purpose and possibility. "Mr. Sullivan?" A familiar voice made them stop. It was Amanda Bennett, the lawyer, walking quickly towards him with a folder in her hand. "I'm glad I reached them. We need one more signature to finalize the foundation documentation." While Cooper reviewed the documents, Madison watched the flight board. Toronto flashed in bright letters, like a beacon guiding the way to its future. His phone buzzed with a message from the app group. It was a video of George showing off his physical therapy progress. There, Cooper handed the signed papers back to Amanda. "Now the foundation is officially established in both cities." Amanda smiled, something rare in her normally serious expression. "You guys are doing something special here. Valerie Chen may not admit it, but she knows it. That's why she agreed to the terms of the partnership." After saying goodbye to Amanda, Madison and Cooper headed to the security area. The morning sun streamed in through the terminal's huge windows, creating patterns of light on the polished floor. It was as if St. Francis himself was saying goodbye with his characteristic glow. "Do you remember the first time I came to this airport?" Cooper commented as they removed the shoes for inspection. "It was when I came home after the accident. I could barely move on my own." Madison nodded, remembering that day vividly. "And now look at you. Not just moving, but moving mountains." On the other side of security, they found a quiet cafe to wait for boarding. Ryan had sent a message with photos from the last session at Hope Springs, where patients had created a digital wall with messages of support for the expansion in Toronto. "It's funny," Madison reflected, looking at the photos, "how sometimes we need to step away from a place to realize how much it means to us." "We're not moving away," Cooper corrected softly. "We're expanding, like the horizon that opens up when you're finally able to stand up after months of being bedridden." The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. As they walked to the gate, Madison received one last message. It was from Dr. Chen in Toronto. "We just received approval from the medical board to implement the real-time monitoring system. Patients can't wait to meet the creators." The boarding line moved slowly, giving Madison time to absorb the moment. Just a week ago, she had been planning this trip as a form of escape, an attempt to leave behind painful memories and unfulfilled dreams. Now, every step toward the plane felt like a step toward something bigger than themselves. "You know what moves me most?" Cooper commented as they found their seats. "Seeing how something that started in a time of pain and uncertainty is turning into hope for so many people." Madison took his hand as the plane taxied to the runway. Through the window, they could see the Golden Gate Bridge in the distance, its majestic towers emerging from the San Francisco morning fog. It was a vision that carried 5 years of stories, struggles, and triumphs. "It's not an end," she murmured, both to herself and to Cooper. "It's a new chapter." The plane took off smoothly, rising above the bay. San Francisco was left behind, but the memories and bonds created there would remain forever. The nights spent developing the app, the small victories during Cooper's recovery, the smiles of patience as they achieved new progress. As they gained altitude, Madison opened her laptop to review plans for Toronto. The screen showed an unread message from Quantum Tech. It was the final details about the new innovation center they would establish, a space that would combine cutting-edge technology with the human touch that had made the original project so special. "Toronto doesn't know what's coming," Cooper smiled, peering at the laptop screen. "No," Madison agreed, returning the smile. "But let's show them. Together." The plane sailed through the clouds, carrying not just 2 passengers, but also a renewed dream, a clear mission, and the promise to transform more lives. It was the beginning of a new journey, one that had begun 5 years ago in a hospital room and was now expanding to horizons they could barely imagine. The sun shone brightly above the clouds, an omen of the bright future that awaited them. Madison closed her eyes for a moment, feeling Cooper's hand in hers, knowing that some stories don't need an ending, just a new beginning.